So continuing with building out our new cart provider component, let's set up remove item and our clear item from cart. And then in the end, we'll also set up cart items count. So we've already done add item, and we know it's going to be pretty much the same thing, except with our remove item from cart. So what we know is that this function is going to be called remove item. It's going to get an item. It's going to set the cart items that we currently store in the local state of cart provider, except what we want to set it to is the array that we get back from the remove item from cart function call, passing in cart items and the item. And then we're just going to pass remove item in as a function value to the value object that we're passing into our cart context provider. With this, our remove item should work. In fact, if we go to our actual checkout item, we can actually modify it so that we can see it in action. So instead of getting add item and remove item from Redux, we want to get it from our new context. So we're going to bring in use context, and then we're going to bring in the cart context. And this, of course, comes from our providers folder, cart provider. And then we're just going to destructure off our add item and remove item from the context value that we get back from saying use context with cart context. Now we do have to make sure that we have not replaced anything that we need. So here we see that we are no longer pulling in add item and remove item from our map dispatch to props, but we haven't written our clear item yet, so we can keep this here. Let's just remove the appropriate code here, and then our checkout item should be working. So here we see in our checkout item that we are inside, but we're still leveraging cart items that come from Redux. So let's modify our actual checkout page to also use our new cart items. So as you've probably gotten familiar with now, we're bringing in the use context hook. We're bringing in our actual cart context from providers, cart provider. And then we just got to make sure we're doing the correct return. Now the total is actually going to be another thing that we need to add, but I'm going to leave that for you as an exercise. So this total value right now is coming from our Redux, but you're going to know how to actually change it as well when we do the cart items count. And it's a good time for you to practice. So let's remove our cart items from here. We don't need this select anymore. And that's actually good enough for now. Now what we're going to pull off is cart items from our cart context. In fact, now we should have an empty array, which we do. So what we'll do is we will add this in. And if I hit this checkout, I actually should see an error. So I do. This is because we're still using dispatch, which we're no longer leveraging for toggling the hidden value. So we actually need to modify our cart dropdown as well. So with our cart dropdown, we know that we are leveraging dispatch that we no longer have access to because we're not using connect anymore. So instead of dispatching toggle cart hidden, we're just going to pull off the toggle cart hidden value that we have on our context. But I think we're calling it toggle hidden. So let's just make that change here. So now if we add in these cart items, if we go to checkout, everything still works. And in fact, we see that our remove item code is working. And it's reflecting inside of our cart dropdown. And just like that, we've replaced Redux with our context API in a very efficient manner. The only thing is that we've also learned how it is to use the provider pattern in order to actually make this look more efficient. So this is a really great thing. In fact, let's keep going. Let's replace the clear item inside of our cart context as well. So not in our cart context, but our cart provider. We need to use this clear item from cart. Now, in order for us to do this, we need to actually define the utility function that will help us clear an item. And we actually currently have the code related to it in our cart reducer. So whenever this clear item from cart comes in, we end up calling this .filter method. So we can copy this, go into our cart utils inside of our provider, and make a new function. We're going to call this function filter item from cart, and it's going to be equal to a function that gets cart items as well as the item that we're trying to remove, and it's going to call cart items .filter using the method that we had and copied from our reducer, except instead of action.payload.id, it's just going to be item.id. And we want to make sure to export this out. So let's copy this and bring this into our actual cart provider. And let's just add this to our cart utils. And then let's define the function. Now the function is going to be called const clear item from cart, being the same name that we have defined in our context. And it's going to be equal to a function that gets the item. And just as you've guessed with our add item and remove item, because it is trying to set our cart items, we're going to call set cart items passing our filter item from cart with our cart items and our item that we're trying to remove. We'll pass this in to our value in our context provider. And now we have our ability to clear the item from a cart. We just have to add this to our checkout item. And we can just add it like this. And now if we check inside of our application, we of course have to add some items. And if we hit the remove, we clear the item. So this is working. We now just have to finish up with our cart item count. And the way we actually update our cart item count is we want to make sure inside of our cart provider object that whenever this cart item's value changes, we fire off an effect that is going to update the cart item count that we currently have. And luckily for us, we've set it up locally already, so all we have to do is just write the effect. Now, we do need to actually get that item count, and we actually currently have the code for it inside of our selectors, because our selector code is what can get the item count. So pulling off this function here, we can add it to our cart utils, and we can call it export const get cart items count. So this will be equal to us just getting our cart items and then returning cart items dot reduce. So in fact, we didn't even need to write cart items. And this will give us back the numerical value of the total quantity. So we just got to bring this in here. And then make sure we fire an effect whenever cart items updates. So we can easily do this with our use effect hook by passing a function that will call set cart items count with the actual cart items value. So using get cart items count, passing in cart items will give us the actual value of the number of quantity of items we have, which will set then locally to the cart items count value. And in order for us to make sure this effect fires whenever cart items updates, we pass in that dependency as the second argument to our effect. And now we just have to actually bring in this cart items count to the cart icon that needs it. So because we're already using the context, we'll make sure that item count comes from here and not from Redux. So we can actually finally remove this map state to props as well as this connect. And we can remove all of this unnecessary code that we had that was leveraging Redux before. And now we see that our item count is up to date with what we're doing with our context API. So this is awesome because now our code is fully up to date leveraging context API instead of Redux. So what I want you to do is actually convert the remaining code that we have inside of our application over to context API, because I've shown you pretty much all of the patterns that you need in order to actually do this. The main one is that you also can set the total as well now that we have in our checkout page by doing the same thing we did with this effect. So anywhere you see a connector, we're using Redux, just modify it so that we're now using our existing Context API code that we've learned how to write. And hopefully in the process, you'll definitely learn how to leverage Context API as well. Now, I want you to do it, and I'm going to provide you with 2 links. One link is going to be all of the code that we've written up until this point, and the other link is going to have the entire application fully converted in case you want the solution for everything that I've written regarding converting the application over into using context. Now, in the next lesson, I'm going to talk about some of my parting thoughts on Context API, because this will mark the end of our Context API lessons. But hopefully by doing so, you've learned the newest feature of what React introduced with Context API, as well as some pretty advanced patterns in how you can use it inside of your existing and future applications. So good luck with the exercise. If you want to clone down what we've got from here, just use one of the links that you'll see in the resources below. Otherwise, you can just skip to the actual final solution, which I will also provide you as a link. So good luck, everybody, and I'll see you in the next lesson.